There are two sentences buried in a 1978 tax law that now decide whether you retire with dignity or work until you die. You've never read them. Almost nobody has. But those two sentences are the entire foundation of your retirement, the 401k. And here's the part that should stop you cold. When Congress wrote them, they weren't talking about you at all. Tonight, I'm going to show you what those sentences actually said, who they were actually written for, and how a fix for a completely different problem became the retirement plan for millions of American workers, almost by accident. Stay with me, because the man who built the first 401k in America has spent the last 10 years calling his own invention a monster. That's the part nobody talks about. Let's start with a trade you never agreed to. Your grandfather, if he worked for a big company, probably had a pension, a promise. Work 30 years, and the company owes you a check every month for the rest of your life, guaranteed, whether the stock market was up or down, whether you lived to 70 or 100. The risk sat on the company's books, not yours. You almost certainly don't have that. You have a 401k, an account where you put in your own money, gamble it in the market, and hope. If the market crashes the year before you retire, that's your problem. If you live to 95, that's your problem too. The risk didn't disappear. It just moved from the company's balance sheet to your kitchen table. Here's the number that shows you the switch actually happened. In the early 1980s, roughly 6 in 10 private sector workers with a retirement plan had that plan be a real pension. Today, it's about 4 in 100. Not a decline, a collapse. And here's who got left out of the solution entirely. Nearly half of Americans have zero retirement savings of any kind. Roughly half of private sector workers don't even have access to a workplace plan. This wasn't a retirement upgrade rolled out to everyone. It was a guarantee taken from most people, replaced with a gamble offered to some of them. Nobody voted on this switch. No one held a referendum on whether America should trade guaranteed pensions for personal stock portfolios. It just happened, company by company, decade by decade. Which raises the obvious question. If it wasn't a plan anyone chose, whose plan was it? That's where it gets interesting. Because the pension didn't fade away by accident. It was pushed. Think like a company for a second. A pension is a promise that never ends. It sits on your books as a liability for decades. You owe it whether profits are good or bad, whether the CEO gets a bonus or not. A 401k match is the opposite. It's a percentage of payroll, budgeted year to year, and, this is the important part, completely optional. You can turn it off. In the 1980s, some companies didn't even wait for their workers to retire. They just took the money. When a pension fund had more assets than it strictly needed, corporate raiders would terminate the whole plan and pocket the surplus. Ronald Perelman took over Revlon in 1985 and shut down its pension specifically to seize a $100 million surplus. Across the decade, corporations pulled more than $20 billion out of pension funds this way, until Congress finally taxed the practice almost to death. $20 billion. Extracted from money that was supposed to be workers' retirement. That's not a company struggling to keep a promise. That's a company discovering the promise was worth more broken than kept. And watch what happens to the backup plan the moment things get hard. In 2008, when the economy cracked, GM, Ford, Charles Schwab, Textron, they didn't ask permission. They just suspended their 401k match. Same thing happened again during COVID. It's happening again right now, quietly, company by company, as I'm recording this. You cannot suspend a pension. It's a legal obligation. But a match? A match is a gift the company can take back the exact moment you need it most. So layer one isn't a mystery. Replace a promise you can't escape with a gift you can revoke. Prices only move one way, away from you. But shrinking the guarantee wasn't enough on its own. Once your money is sitting in an account instead of a pension fund, somebody has to manage it, and that's where the second hand reaches into your pocket. This one, every single year, whether the market goes up or down. Here's a number the Department of Labor put its own name on. A difference of just 1 percentage point in fees can shrink your final retirement balance by roughly 28%. Not 1%, 28. Run the math the way the DOL does. $25,000, 35 years to grow, 7% average returns. Let fees eat half a point, and you retire with about $227,000. Let fees eat 1.5 points instead, still a completely normal fee level, and you retire with $163,000. Same market, same decades. $64,000 gone to a line item most people never look at. and most people genuinely don't look at it. Government auditors found that 4 in 10 401k participants don't even know they're paying fees at all. Not that they don't understand the fee, they don't know it exists. It's the perfect leak, silent, compounding, and invisible to the person losing the money. Now zoom out. All of this, every account, every fee, every dollar adds up to over $10 trillion sitting in 401k plans in America today. $10 trillion that has to be managed by someone, invested by someone, charged a fee by someone. That someone is Wall Street. Win or lose, boom or bust, the fee gets paid. Your 401k is the only investment relationship in your life where the manager gets paid the same amount whether you win or you lose. Layer 1 shrank the guarantee. Layer 2 attached a permanent toll booth to what was left. And neither of those happened because Congress sat down and designed a national retirement system. Which brings us back to the two sentences I promised you at the start. Because once you read what they actually say, the entire system stops looking like a mistake and starts looking like a very specific kind of accident. In 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Act. Buried inside it was a short, technical provision, Section 401k, written to settle a dispute over cash or deferred arrangements. In plain English, it was about executives who wanted to defer part of their bonus into future years to avoid a tax bill in the current one. That's it. That's what the section was actually for. Nobody stood up on the floor of Congress and announced they were replacing the American pension system. There was no debate about whether every worker in the country should become their own retirement fund manager. It wasn't in the bill. It wasn't in the intent. It wasn't even close. Then, in 1980, a benefits consultant named Ted Benna read those two sentences and did something nobody in Congress anticipated. He built an entire retirement plan out of them. And he added an employer match, a feature that Congress never wrote into the law at all. The IRS blessed it in 1981. Companies piled in immediately. Because, remember Act 2, a match was so much cheaper than a pension. Ted Benna is now known, permanently, as the father of the 401k. Here's the payoff. Here's the part nobody talks about. For the last decade, Ted Benna, the man who invented it, has been telling anyone who will listen that he created a monster. His words, it should be blown up. When asked what he regrets most, he didn't point to the market risk or the fees. He said, quote, "I helped open the door for Wall Street to make even more money than they were already making." The inventor of the American retirement system looked at what it became and called it a monster. Sit with that. The system wasn't hijacked by a villain in the shadows. It was built out of a footnote, by one man's aggressive reading of two sentences meant for someone else entirely. And 45 years later, it's the only retirement plan most of you will ever have. So let's name what's actually going on. Because it isn't a conspiracy of secret meetings, it's worse. It's a conspiracy of incentives, completely legal, completely visible, and completely unstoppable. Because every party at the table profits from the exact same arrangement staying exactly as it is. Look at where the government's own retirement subsidy actually goes. The tax breaks tied to retirement accounts cost the country roughly $400 billion a year. The top 20% of earners, the households who'd save for retirement with or without a tax break, capture about 2/3 of that benefit. The bottom 20%, the people the system was supposedly designed to protect, get about 1%. Read that again. 1%. The government gets to hold a press conference about retirement savings incentives. The corporation gets to erase a liability that used to sit on its books for 40 years. Wall Street gets a permanent, unconditional cut of $10 trillion. And you get an account, a login, and the full-time unpaid job of being your own pension fund manager, with none of the training and all of the risk. Nobody needed to conspire. They just needed to notice, each on their own, that a system built on a footnote nobody debated was working out extremely well for everyone, except the person it was named after, the worker with the account. The only way you fix a system like this is boring and unpopular. Real guaranteed benefits, real fee caps, real universal access. The things Congress could legislate tomorrow if the same people benefiting from the current arrangement weren't the ones writing the next one. No politician is going to run on your 401k was a mistake. So I just told you. The question was never whether the 401k can be fixed by picking better funds. The question is, now that you know it was never built for you, what do you do with money you're managing inside a system that was designed for someone else's tax problem? If you want to know what people who understand this actually do differently with their own retirement money, that's the next video. Subscribe, because Wall Street is certainly not going to explain it to you.